So in March last year, the rebels held a mass gathering in Canberra, and last year we also saw the Comanchero bikie gang members descend on Canberra for their annual meeting. And just a couple of weeks ago, we had Hells Angels bikie members also descend on Canberra. So it seems that Canberra is a very popular destination for outlaw bikie gang members. Does it concern you to see so many outlaw motorcycle gang members descend on Canberra?
Yeah, certainly. In terms of from ACT policing, obviously we operate and we police within the legislation that we have in the ACT, and obviously that's a matter for the Legislative Assembly. Certainly from our perspective, any gathering of outlaw motorcycle gangs does concern us, so we ensure that we have appropriate policing arrangements in place here in the ACT, particularly proactive policing arrangements and visible policing arrangements in terms of how we manage those runs here in the ACT. And we also do that very much in partnership with our New South Wales Police colleagues as well, noting that we have obviously Task Force Raptor in New South Wales has a strong brand in terms of the disruptive task force that they have in place. There is a Raptor South now that we engage with heavily, and obviously we manage, we certainly partner with them in terms of the runs into the ACT, as we did recently with the Hells Angels run here in the ACT. But we certainly look to ensure we've got a visible police presence. We put disruption aspects in place where we can, and that includes our road policing activity, vehicle checkpoints, ensuring that their behaviour in the ACT is lawful in terms of and minimises the impact on the community here in the ACT. Notwithstanding these individuals are organised crime, so we do it very much in that context.
Why is it that the ACT is so attractive to bikie members? Why are they choosing Canberra, of all places in Australia, to congregate and have their annual meets?
Yeah, well, certainly, as I said, it's a matter for the Legislative Assembly here in terms of the legislation that exists here in the ACT. Certainly within the ACT they can congregate, they can associate. So that obviously that's the legislative framework that we have here. We operate within that though, and as I said, seek to do what we can to make sure that we manage and we ensure that we have a policing operation in place for that. So obviously there is an environment that allows them to do that lawfully, and as is their right, they do that, and we police appropriately.
And Ms Morris, what I would say is that the 3 instances in the last year and a half are a perfect example that ACT Police do have the appropriate enforcement framework to be able to address these groups entering the ACT. And I would also refer you to a 2023 New South Wales review, an oversight body of the Law Enforcement Conduct Commission, who looked at their anti-consorting laws in New South Wales, and they raised serious concerns about the overrepresentation of Aboriginal people in the use of the consorting law and police targeting activity that does not fit the definition of coordinated serious criminal activity. So what we, we've been through this debate and discussion many times, and basically these anti-consorting laws that have been implemented in other states are a disproportionate response, and that's what the New South Wales Law Review Committees are articulating, and basically they're inconsistent with human rights principles that we have here in the ACT.
So were we to have anti-consorting laws in the ACT, we would not be seeing events of this nature occurring in Canberra?
Well, you still might see them, but they might be more undercover. So I would suggest that ACT Policing's engagement with these groups actually gives them a greater intelligence base to be able to understand organised crime.
Okay, that's certainly one argument. How much have each of these events cost in terms of diversion of police resources?
Well, I'd need to take that on notice, Ms Morris, just in terms of certainly with each of those runs there was a significant policing presence to ensure that if you like, everyone understood that the police were in charge. So that I can certainly take it on notice, see if we are able to extract that cost for you.
Thank you, that would be...
I might be able to assist the CPO with the last run, the
Yes,
Hells Angels run. So it was approximately 120 members attended.
Yep.
There was 123 shifts over a 3-day period. That included 24 road policing shifts and 21 New South Wales police officers as well, as we work in collaboration. If I might just add one more point, the other part of our response in the organised crime space, OMCG space, is our local engagement with the ACIC and the greater AFP in a joint management group to identify priority targets for high-level organised crime. And then at the national level, at the Assistant Commissioner level, the Serious and Organised Crime Committee has a number of working groups across firearms, organised crime, child exploitation, sexual offences that harnesses both the intelligence and the effort of the agencies, but weeks of action as well.
Thank you. That seems to me like to be an extraordinary diversion of resources for something which could be prevented in the first place with anti-consorting laws. But nonetheless, I just have one more question.
And I have a supplementary.
Okay, thank you. I'm interested to know your insights or analysis on prevention of crime and the role that does play in police officer duties.
You mean specifically to...
The role of prevention and deterrence
Yeah,
in
okay.
policing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I might just pass to the acting DCPO on that issue in terms of providing some more context, if you like, in that space around crime.
Thank you. Look, that is a great question. If we talked about sort of general duties, day-to-day crime response that affects the community, a lot of it is, as the CPO has said, there is the enforcement aspect that we do, then there is the community engagement, crime prevention and education we do. So part of that is addressing, I think, the underlying factors, mental health issues, education issues, homelessness, inadequate housing. So a lot of it is working with partners. The CPO mentioned the proactive intervention diversion team at Torrick. Restorative justice is an important part of getting people into that space of understanding the nature of their behaviour, the impact it has on victims, support link referrals for those underlying factors that we mentioned before, and early intervention. So we last year 225 early intervention for drug diversions, 58 were pre-DOTA enactment and 167 post-DOTA. So there's just some of the efforts we put together to the crime prevention piece.
Go first.
I was just going to add to that last term ACT Policing moved to the police services model, which is proactive policing, sort of intelligence-led policing model rather than just being purely responsive. So there was significant investment in that in the last term, and that has flowed on to the more ACT policing commitment to see more ACT police, but it is about facilitating police to be out and about in the community, to be proactive and responsive, high visibility, and have the tools and technology on them in the vehicles and on the road to be able to do that work out there rather than having to come back to the station all the time.
So I have a supplementary. So with the diversion of police resources with the Hells Angel, the Comancheros gathering and the Hells Angel run, what wasn't being done by police because they were required to closely monitor these gangs?
Certainly, I think in terms of the broader perspective, Mr. Kane, in terms of ACT policing, obviously, when you look at the demands that we have across all crime areas in the ACT, obviously it's a matter of prioritisation, constant prioritisation for any significant event or incident. But that also is a situation where we have other major events here in the ACT, and we need to look at I need to look at how we prioritise our resources in that regard. So certainly there's that prioritisation that's undertaken. That obviously, from our perspective, will impact on our priority 3, priority 4 responses in the ACT. So those that are less immediate in terms of our response. And the other is certainly the other aspect to how we continue to meet that demand is in relation to our members. Certainly at the moment, when you look at the not only the Outlaws Motorcycle Gang Run, but other major events we've had recently, including the police presence we had at Summonats, for example. That is, a lot of those shifts are actually filled on overtime for our members. So our members will do a lot of that on overtime. Yeah.
And luckily we have the evidence base from other jurisdictions that has developed who do have anti-consorting laws to show that they have been ineffective and that they are seeing to an overrepresentation
They
of
obviously have been
Aboriginal
effective.
and Torres Strait Islander
They're all coming,
people, which again, comes at a significant cost to the community that I think other jurisdictions are experiencing.
Well, noting, Minister, you've quoted one report from one body in New South Wales, but we might
The Law
move to a
Enforcement
fresh
Conduct
substantive
Commission.